Good afternoon. I'm Nancy Koehn. I'm a historian at the Harvard Business School where I teach the history of leadership. I've been here for many, many years trying to help develop, nurture, inspire, teach leaders from all walks of life and in all shapes and sizes. As part of this ongoing work, which includes my classes, my writings, a new book I have coming out called Forged in Crisis, The Power of Courageous Leadership in Turbulent Times, I take it very seriously to bring the message of leading from your higher self, making yourself, let me repeat that, making yourself into a courageous leader and making a real worthy impact in the world. So that's my mission. That's what I get up in the morning to do every day. And in that sense, and in others, it's a great privilege, an honor, a pleasure to be a small part of this exciting project, Girls for Girls. And I'm speaking to you today in that context. I want to talk a little bit about the making of leaders, and then I want to suggest to you how you can make a pact with yourself, how you can have an ongoing commitment to your stronger self to be and become a courageous leader that accomplishes the mission deep in your heart, deep in your head, deep in your soul. I spent the last 10 years writing about 5 very interesting, very different leaders. These were all people who lived in the past, but since I'm at the Harvard Business School, my work is very much about the present and how we can use history, understand it in order to inform our own lives, in order to make ourselves better, in order to make the world better. And one of the people in my new book, one of the people I've gotten to know very, very well, is a woman named Rachel Carson. Now, you may not have heard of Rachel Carson before. She was born in 1907 and she lived until 1964, so she was way before your time. But you should look her up and get to know her, because she was an outstanding leader. I would suggest to you one of the most influential and important people of the last 100 years. And she wrote one of the most influential and powerful books in English in the last century called Silent Spring. And yet, she was a woman who didn't fit any of the traditional molds of male leadership. She was shy, she was quiet, she preferred to walk along the beaches of the northeastern United States than to click along with her heels the corridors of power in Washington, D.C. or New York. She worked for much of her life without an institutional affiliation, but she was a scientist in a world in which most women, this is the early 20th century, then the middle decades of the 20th century, didn't become scientists. And this was a world in which the few women scientists that there were didn't disrupt the male hierarchy or the traditional wisdom. And she did both when she wrote her book. Her book is about the effect of pesticides, synthetic pesticides, on human health, on the environment, on wildlife, and on the ecosystem, our earth, on which we all depend, right? All forms of life depend for sustainable existence. And it's an astounding book. And there are many, many lessons for women leaders today in this book and from her life. So again, I urge you to take up, right, interest in her and to get to know her. Because I would suggest to you as my, if you will, last summary remark about Rachel Carson, that she was more powerful in what she did than any president or prime minister of the last 100 years. And the big message there, before I turn to specific lessons for you and other women that want to lead with power and courage and impact, the big insight there is that she did very, very careful homework, right? She believed in her mission and she pursued it and found the strength, not once, but over and over and over again to keep coming back to her mission when she was dissuaded, when she was disappointed, when the obstacles piled up in front of her, And with her small support system, which was a group of friends, an editor, a publicist, a few family members, she was not married, right? She rocked the world in a way that we still feel the positive effects of, primarily by literally jump-starting the global environmental movement. So her life, Mohandas Gandhi once said, "My life is my message." Rachel Carson's life was her message. And in the power of what she did and how she did it and how she broke through all these traditional boundaries, we can all take great knowledge and insight and inspiration. So with that as backdrop, let me pass on to you a few things I have learned by watching and observing and getting to know not only leaders of the past, but leaders of our time, leaders that are leading right now. The first thing I would offer to you, it's very, very important. It's more important than it sounds at first listening. So hear me out here. The first thing I would say to you is find your mission. And I don't mean go out on a grand, dramatic quest for it. I mean listen to the quiet voices in your head and your heart, to what really strikes you as being very, very important and what needs to be changed on that stage of importance. What needs to be done in the world as you look out on it? What do you feel a driving, burning desire to be involved in? What strikes you about the different pieces of the world as you look at it that most people don't seem to be putting together? And P.S., don't worry if you don't have all the answers to those questions right now. The point is to keep looking. Because if you don't find it right away, you have a hunch about what the next point your heart and head and soul tell you to steer to. So that's another interesting aspect of finding or stumbling into or suddenly, literally, accidentally looking up and seeing, or down and seeing your mission. Most great leaders don't start off with trumpets blaring and a perfect map to where they're headed. Most great leaders navigate point to point. And they start that navigation, that journey by saying, here's a place I instinctively, I intellectually, I ethically and morally think I needed to be heading in. And then they take the first steps toward that point. And as they carry on their journey, they learn more. And more pieces of the puzzle start to come together. And a mission emerges, not in perfect, beautiful, bronze, gilded form, right? But in pieces and out of the swamp fog and gradually. And then sometimes with a little bit more speed and drama. But the point is, keep looking for your mission. And when you don't have it, navigate to the next point and then navigate to the point after that. All the while, and this is the second part of this first lesson, navigate, look for your mission. All the while that you're looking for your mission, you're looking at the broader world. You're not losing sight of what's going on in the wider world around you. So you can't be, this is really important too, you can't believe that the most important part of your life and your leadership is your mobile phone. Because if you're looking down at your mobile phone most of the time and surfing the web and connecting with your social media sites, you are by definition not looking up and out at the wider world. If the answers were in the mobile phone, the world would be a very different place right now. A better place, a more luminous place, a more ethical place, a more diverse place, a place where most people were digging down deep more often than not to find their stronger self. An American writer named David Foster Wallace once said, "Courageous leaders are individuals who help us overcome the limitations of our own weaknesses and selfishness and laziness and fears and get us to do harder, better, more important things than we can get ourselves to do on our own." And that's what great leaders are. Think about the leaders in your life, the teachers that meant something to you, the family members, the political figures, the social activists, the good friends. They were people that helped you do harder, better, more important things than your own limitations would have you do on your own. So we can't find that kind of leadership backbone within ourselves and pass it on to others if we're always looking at our phone. So the main message is keep looking for your mission. Don't stop. Navigate point to point as you look for it. But don't think that most of the answers lie on your phone. None of the leaders I've ever studied, right, were wedded to their phones. Not today, not yesterday. And of course, they couldn't have been many, many years ago. But even in older times, the leaders I've studied spent much more time in and looking at the world than they did reactively, emotionally interacting on a point-by-point ad hoc basis. Okay. Lesson number 1, look for your mission. Lesson number 2, invest in your gathering years. So we think that in this world of instant communication and celebrity worship and way too much emphasis placed on fame for fame's sake, regardless of what the fame is achieved for, we think that somehow the road to impact and influence is a quick and straightforward one. I assure you that nothing you will ever get deep satisfaction from, and nothing that you will ever care very, very much about, comes in a quick, rapid-fire, straight-line way. All the good, important stuff takes time. It takes time and investment, it takes mistakes, it takes walking 2 steps forward, then stumbling back one. You know, from creating a great relationship with another person, to writing something that you really care about, to building a company, to starting a movement. It takes time and energy, and that means, lesson number 2, that all great leaders have gathering years. Years when somehow you're not necessarily checking things off your bucket list. You're not necessarily, chalking up 100 or 50 points for your resume, but you are investing in yourself. You're looking at the world and learning from the people around you, both leaders that you admire and that you know are on the right higher path, right? Helping others do better, more important, harder things than they could do on their own, and leaders who can't do that because they're too insecure, or they've gone over to the dark side, or they're too caught up in transactions rather than real, important, positive stuff. The people that you decide, I don't want to be like them. I don't need to take a page from their book. They teach you almost as much as your mentors and the folks that inspire you and the people from history that you learn from, the stories, the myths that we make our own and come back to again and again. So remember that some of your years, not just right now when you're young and the world is open before you, but later in your life. There are gathering years in everyone's life. The Buddha and Mohammed taught us that life comes to us, right, in moments of great fullness, and then in moments when things are less full and they fall away from us. And in different ways, each of those moments in our life are moments when we can gather knowledge, understanding, strengthen our core muscles of resilience and curiosity and imagination and moral courage. So lesson number 2 is, gathering years are critically important. And when we find ourselves in these moments when it seems like nothing very much is happening externally, I assure you a great deal is happening internally if you commit to gathering years and making the most of them. Last point on gathering years. I haven't studied any leader, anyone from Howard Schultz, who founded Starbucks, to Abraham Lincoln, who led the American country through the Civil War, to Gandhi and what he accomplished right after he left England and came to India. I haven't studied any leader that didn't spend some real time in what the New Testament of the Bible calls the wilderness years, and didn't use those years to gather. So very little that is big and important and moves our global village forward into the light happens without gathering years. So embrace them and use them. And the third lesson I would offer you is a little less common in the leadership grapevine. It's not on all those lists of highly organized people. It's not on all those, develop your charisma, learn to be a public speaker, right? All those, again, in many ways, heavily male-influenced checklists. This is a different kind of list, but it's very true for all leaders, but it's more intuitive and obvious when you articulate, or a leadership expert like myself articulates it to women leaders, and that is choose your village very carefully. And I mean that just like what it sounds. Choose the people around you very, very carefully. That means the people that you trust, the people that you look to learn from, the people that you look to for support, the people that you want to in turn, right, provide a reciprocal amount of support, encouragement, education, inspiration. Choose those people very carefully, because leaders are not born, they're made. I know this, I spent years and years studying this. They're made, and part of that making is who are the people that they bring into their circle and then keep in that circle at different points of their life, because our circles change some. A few people will stay with us for all our lives. A few people will come and be there for a long time. Others will come in and out. But it's critically important, and I don't mean it primarily in Machiavellian way. I don't mean choose people that can help you move to the next level. That's useful. There won't be people in all of our lives like that. I mean, are you surrounded by people who are giving you positive energy while you give them positive energy? Think about all the negative energy in the world right now. Think about all the baseness and anger and cynicism that we say in America. I live in America right now. This country right now is caught up in what historians call a zeitgeist of hate, attack, cynicism, and baseness. You can have people in your world, in your close world, in your working world, in your religious world, if you're spiritual, in your professional world, that are energy sappers or providers of darker energy. And I tell you that if that is the case with a lot of people in your world, you need to mix it up with your village. You want to choose your friends and your colleagues and the people you're working toward and for very carefully. And you want to make sure that they are luminous, not dark. You want to make sure that they see the possibility of real and sustain the possibility of credible hope, right? Toward making the world a better place, toward helping other people, other young women, feed their stronger self and grow from that stronger core and pass that baton on and on and on again. The planet will not be saved by a default to self-serving transactions or baseness or cynicism. We will either prosper or perish based on our ability to move on the higher path and toward credible hope and a future of light for us and all creatures on this planet. And that means leaders themselves have to find people like that to really trust and really surround themselves with. So first part of choose your village carefully right now has to do with being with people, really trusting people, learning from people that are primarily of that ilk, of that character, of that kind of energy. But there's another lesson beneath, it was nested within this one, and that is that life is long. So as Ernest Shackleton, a great Antarctic explorer that I have studied extensively because he was an ordinary person who did an extraordinary thing. All my work is about how ordinary people find the strength within them and find people around them that can help them do extraordinary things. I'm interested in how we make the impossible possible. And I've seen it happen over and over again. So I speak to you from that place. And Ernest Shackleton, who did that, made the impossible possible, said over and over again, if you're on a big, important mission, you have to keep your friends close, but you must also keep your enemies even closer. So you have to learn to find the emotional strength as you choose your village, right? As you decide who you're saying yes to and who you're saying no to and how. You have to choose, right, in a sense, how you're going to comport yourself, interact with, send signals to the people that are not your friends, that are not trying to help you, because they're important too. And you want to be showing up every single day in service to that mission. And that means 9 times out of 10, you can't afford, with the reactive, hostile, emotionally charged energy that's so much a part of texts and Twitter and social media and swift emails, you can't afford to alienate a whole lot of people. You have to, if you can't bring them into the tent of your mission, into the mosque of your mission, then you have to somehow dial down the volume, right, of their adversity toward you or their animosity toward your mission and move forward. So that requires a great deal of emotional strength and patience and forbearance. The last part of choose your village carefully, and start right now doing this. The last part is that as you walk your journey, as you carry on, even if you're not sure of your mission, but you know you're navigating toward what feels like the right point next, you're going to encounter obstacles. Trees fall in your path of all shapes and sizes, right? Sometimes you don't see them coming, sometimes you do. So you have to learn, and here your village is really important, you have to learn how, in your moments of great doubt, in your sleepless nights, in the moments when you're just not sure you can do it, you have to learn how to do two things. One, not fall through the floorboards of doubt in yourself and your purpose. Just not fall through them. I didn't say leap over them with, a flying bound. Right? I said not fall through. You can get to the edge of those creaky floorboards, but you can't fall through. And the other thing you have to do is once you know you're not going to pitch forward through those weak floorboards, you have to then find the strength to take the next tiny, tiny step, in spite of your doubts, in spite of your sense of personal questioning. You have to find the strength to take the next tiny baby step toward your dream. And that's going to require, more than anything else, strength within you. It's going to be you that's really going to do that time after time. But you're going to be greatly helped in different ways by the people around you. Not necessarily in that moment, that great dark moment, when everything's at stake, because if you fall through the floorboards as a leader, the mission is over. But in the next moment, when you take the next first small step. So you're going to need people around you who can help you hold the dream, hold the mission, and hold your own faith in yourself. And those people come in many shapes and sizes. Most of them will be other women, but some of them will be men, some of them will be family members, some of them will be teachers, some of them will be people you meet in the strangest of circumstances that then latch onto your light and become committed to keeping that candle burning, or that flame, building and growing and well lit. So choose your village carefully. Okay, so let's review. Find your mission. Don't worry if it takes a long time. You don't need to find it in perfect form, and it's going to change a little as things happen. But don't stop seeking it, and don't believe you can't have a big, bold, huge, powerful, worthy mission. George Bernard Shaw, English essayist and humorist and playwright of the early 20th century, once said, "Embrace a mighty cause, embrace a big, bold purpose, and mighty forces will come to your aid." Or as Lincoln once said, Abraham Lincoln once said, right makes might. So lesson number one, look for your purpose and navigate point to point, following your heart and your head as you do. Lesson number two, some of your time will be gathering years when you're investing in yourself and reflecting on what you're doing and growing within as you have meeting after meeting with yourself, as you're always watching the larger stage, right? Because you're not going to be wedded to your phone, you're going to be looking up and out. So gathering years are critically important, and you have to make the most of them. And remember that all great leadership starts within the leader, him or herself or himself. So those gathering years when you're really working on yourself are really vital. And they can be some of the most satisfying times you will spend in this life. And lesson number three, choose the people that you surround yourself with. We don't have perfect control over lots of things in our life. We have some real agency over the people we surround ourselves with. Make sure they're givers, not takers. Because you're a giver or you wouldn't be watching this film, be on this website. So, right, surround yourself with givers. Trust the givers. Learn from the givers. But don't be afraid, right, to keep your enemies closer than your friends. Because the doubting Thomases, the cynics, right, the critics, the dark folks that don't want to see light shine, they can do a lot to debase and diminish your mission and your path. But you can do even more to keep them from doing that by skillful emotional awareness, patience and forbearance, and just walking the higher road in how you show up. Let me close by saying that as a historian, I get paid to study the big picture of history, to look at a moment and say what's really going on in terms of the larger forces and women's power to influence those forces. And I can tell you, without any doubt at all, that we are living in a moment in which your leadership, your gifts, your commitment to making yourself, step by step, throughout your life, from this day forward to the day that you pass on to the next life, that you are committed to making yourself into a great leader. The world has never needed you, your commitment, your gifts, your mission, your inspiration, your light more than it needs it right here and right now. So don't stop, don't lose faith, right? Let me tell you with great experience from the Harvard Business School as a woman herself, right, who came through a male-dominated world here at HBS, right, to get tenure and find her wings and stretch them and soar. Let me tell you, you can do this and you will, and our global village needs you. Godspeed. Godspeed. It's a pleasure to talk with you.